everyone, welcome to 1 Million Cups Irvine. Just as a public service announcement, because although it looks like everybody already is, we are going to go on the honor system this week. So instead of Matt playing God and muting everyone, which, oh my gosh, don't we wish that we could do that? He will be leaving mics open, and we are leaving it up to you as our wonderful audience to go ahead and mute yourselves. That is for a couple of reasons. The big one is to make sure that if you want to ask a question, you can. Matt, do you have a comment, or are you focusing on something else?
I got a echo. I don't know if other people are getting that.
Does anybody else have an echo?
No.
Thank you.
I know that happens sometimes if you're not using an earphone and your microphone and speaker.
I fixed it. We're good.
Cool. Another PSA. If you are newer to Zoom and you go and the very bottom for me, it may be in a different place for you. Different operating systems kind of stick stuff in different places, and there's a couple of ways to access Zoom. There should somewhere be a button for chat that you can hover over and click on. If you click, that will open the box. It's actually not in place, and Farah has been using it really, really well this morning, as well as to go ahead and necessarily putting extra noise on the line. That is a wonderful channel. I have that open the whole time. I believe Matt also has. Incidentally, during that time, if you have and it will actually show you participant reasons. The first is that you can, that's always nice in the video for everybody. The other, one of them is the raise on. If you scroll through your participants, you can see that mine is on. If you have a question, after that, I see Kristen has a thumbs up with the more button, and one of the go ahead. Type it into the chat window in the next, our general economy. And of course, that's what we're here to do. So to go ahead and present, it is getting to be kind of long.
Let me share my screen.
Kristen, are you talking about the overall story arc?
I'd say for the slide deck.
Okay, story of the slide deck. And then the final one is going to be overall her presentation skills. For those of you who don't know Kristen, she is a longtime member of our 1 Million Cups community, and she is getting ready to compete in the new venture competition from UCI. This year, of course, has a very specific challenge. We are all being socially distant, which means virtual presentation skills are going to become more and more important. If you have some tips or tricks to share with Kristen afterwards, as well as the rest of us, because holy cow, most of us, including myself, are still learning. We are going ahead and getting on board with that. So, Kristen, are you about good to go?
I do have a question. I have two monitors, but when I hit present, it did it on both. So how do I just make it on the one?
Do we have a Zoom expert in the house?
Dun, dun, dun. Yes, no, maybe so.
Not sure.
Okay, well, let me see. Sorry. Not there. We'll figure this out.
So while we're getting that all sorted out, does anybody have any questions or comments about 1 Million Cups and what it is that we are doing here this morning?
I can just do that. Do you guys see the stuff over here?
We can
see your deck.
Just the deck.
I can see the deck and the background.
Okay. You know,
but I can
a Word document on the left-hand side.
No.
I've got all my other windows on the left-hand side, so you're fine. And honestly, your background is super charming. I like it.
Thank you. Okay, we're just gonna roll this way.
Yeah.
Oop. There we go. We ready?
Okay, when you are ready.
Okay, so my company is AntiNA, anti-nausea chew. Natural and organic chewable formulated to calm the discomfort caused by nausea safely without an expensive doctor's prescription. Sorry, I was timing myself. Do you remember the last time you tossed your cookies? Well, what did you do? You went, hopefully grabbed your bucket, or you went and got your trash can, or you went to the toilet and you hung out there. But what did you do next? You went to your medicine cabinet. You saw these products. Do they look familiar to you? Here is the marketplace for AntiNA chews. Nausea sucks. It reduces the productivity and the desire to be involved in social activities as well as vacations. I unfortunately get altitude sickness. I personally have tried a wide variety of different products, trying to find that little boost just to get me to the top of the mountain. My solution is a chew that is fast acting. Where'd my cursor go? Sorry. That's fast acting as well as affordable and hassle-free. We have just formulated our initial product chews and we're embarking on testing. My formula, we've researched and have uncovered that natural products such as ginger, peppermint, D-ribose, lemon, and vitamin B6 all help to ease the discomfort caused by nausea. But most of the other individuals that are in this marketplace, they experience a high sense of fatigue because of their upset stomach. The D-ribose is a natural energy that is not sugar and it's not caffeine, that is formulated to help revive energy levels, bringing people back to their, someone have a question? Okay. Bringing them back to their high energy levels. The market opportunity. For most of us, nausea is infrequent or we have learned how to manage the discomfort. But for two segments of the population, expectant mothers and the chemotherapy patients, nausea is experienced daily and for many consecutive days. 85% of expectant mothers experience morning sickness. 90% of chemotherapy patients experience nausea and vomiting. I have gone in and we've done discovery interviews, which highlighted a couple very interesting things. People want trusted, safe, natural products. They're highly desirable, but the problem that my company faces is that the path to success is in educating future consumers about natural alternatives. The competitive landscape, we have 4 types of competition or chews in this market. There's the chews, there's the hard candy, there's over-the-counter pills, wristbands, and of course, pharmaceuticals. AntiNA is addressing not just the nausea, but also the other issues that our competitors are not considering, the energy level, helping people bring their pep back to their step. The uncooked soft chew that we are formulating, one has less sugar, so it's less chewy and it does not stick to your teeth. It is also fast acting and works even if you are vomiting because it absorbs in the mouth, the cheeks, and the tongue instead of through the digestive tract. Expensive prescription medications also carry the risk of birth defects, even though they are recommended by their doctor. So that is an additional risk that we are avoiding. Our target customer. AntiNA is initially targeting consumers that are women between the ages of 24 to 44 who experience morning sickness. Our goal is to create a long-lasting, repetitive customer, as the women are the primary caregivers of the family unit and will be able to purchase the consumables on a recurring basis, especially as their children become or experience car sickness, or their friends and family might experience migraine, nausea, altitude sickness, or even sometimes motion sickness from driving in cars. Our go-to-market strategy is essentially trying to build a brand campaign that throughout all platforms are entirely interlinked. Our online campaign will include influencers, social media posts, Google Ads, and mommy blogs. Our in-person outreaches focus on free samples to women while providing an opportunity to speak directly to fellow product users and formula experts through expos, conventions, as well as farmers markets. Our revenue model, we are both a B2C and B2B platform. We have gone in and calculated and estimated our margin based off of the current formulation that was provided to me. And that gives me an 83.4% gross margin. And the additional decrease in margin for the wholesalers and Amazon has to do with the additional trade and ad back credits that respective retailers charge to businesses. Our business model, as everyone wants to see the hockey stick diagram, we are primed and positioned to go in and build successfully and quickly as soon as funds become available. We've reached out, we have a contract manufacturer, we have already identified and created the relationship with the D-ribose manufacturer that has a patented process. We have a distribution network already identified, as well as the consumer-focused testing that is needed with not just the gynecologist, but with oncologists and also the Ventura County Coast Guard, so we can test out motion sickness. So we're going through our trials in 3 different avenues. Sorry. The team, we have built a team that is ready to be successful. We have many years of experience between all of us in mostly specifically the industry of consumable products. Brett comes with us with experience from Allergan, which is where Emergency came from. And he's also working at another company, Matcha Life right now, which is another chew product. Diana Ramos is a board certified physician. She's a gynecologist and delivers babies at Kaiser Permanente. And she's also the senior district VP for our local area for ACOG. Carol comes to us with a strong nutrition background, and she'll be able to help us not just with identifying better new ingredients, but also how to make sure that they are holistic and are beneficial to the whole person. My ask, we are asking for savvy investors that are have cutting edge strategic partnerships and a desire to help small companies grow. I have a timeline listed out there for what is our target for the next 6 months. And just for some interesting tidbits of information to close with, why now? Why now? Because there's a potential baby boom coming based on the articles that we've read here. And in addition to that, another segue of importance is in California, in Irvine specifically, the City of Hope is building a new cancer facility out by the Air Force Base. And that is a huge resource for us. And one of my other classmates is an oncologist for that facility. So that is another interesting and important connection. So thank you.
Everybody go ahead, raise your hands up and give Kristen a big hand of applause where she can see it.
Woo.
Here we go. Oh, I do have financials. There you go.
I'm so sorry, Kristen. Did I just cut you off?
No.
Okay. And just to let you know, you did go a few minutes over. You came in close to 9.
8 minutes and 30 seconds.
So just as an FYI for if you make it to the Ant Tank, which is the finals for New Venture competition. For everybody, does anybody have a quick question before we get into our rooms for discussion? And Matt, are we set up to go ahead and put people into rooms for discussion?
We are.
Okay.
So I'll break it into 5 rooms.
Yeah, 5 rooms. So for everybody, we're going to be breaking you up into rooms so that you can discuss Kristen's 3 asks.
Okay.
Again,
so we'll break into 5 rooms for
let's give them 8 minutes or 10 minutes.
okay.
Yeah, and Kristen, since you're still on screen share, before we go anywhere, everybody take a look. The slides, are they effective? Do you like the story? And then, of course, those virtual presentation skills. I'm going to add into that any pertinent questions that you had. Remember, you can use that chat box. So, Matt, when you are ready, we'll go ahead and sort them.
Kristen, I have
Okay, here we go.
Oh,
Yes, I heard something.
I was going to say, this is Farah. I have a suggestion for you. Move your camera in front of your face rather than to the side, because it looked like you were talking to the side rather than to me.
Yeah, I need to go get away. Hi.
Hey, Kristen.
Hello.
Is this the main area or are we in a chat room? Because I can't
This is-
actually tell. My
this is
computer.
the main
You're,
area.
you're in the main area. We came back.
We came
Okay.
back. It was just there was four of us, but only the two of us were talking, so it was kind of like we're
I
having a
don't need, I
conversation.
don't need to ask myself questions. I've given
Well,
myself feedback, but
Okay, well, we got a couple more of us on here, so we can talk with you.
yeah.
I've got a question on your so my background's food and beverage.
Oh, cool.
This seems like I know you've got kind of a medical spin on the product, but it's basically a food and beverage product.
Absolutely.
At least.
No FDA.
So one of the things I don't like, how about that, about your business?
Yeah.
I think like the idea and all that type of stuff and the execution I think is pretty good. The sales and distribution model is an area where I would argue to you that there is a significant amount more cost than you may be anticipating. Running your distribution model through KeHE and through whatchamacallit, those guys have like well over 100,000 products in their portfolio. To get to top of mind of those guys to where you can actually leverage what they do is super, super expensive. So absolutely, they can deliver your product to the consumer, but what they can't help you with is sell your product, get into new distribution channels. So that's a real expensive path to go, especially when you're like a young company. So
Right.
Ali and I were talking about like crowdfunding and like some more, nimble ways of maybe getting like proof of concept.
Yes.
Or traction.
Yes. So that's actually why my preferred path is definitely, I mean, my background is in a consumable. It's not actually, so the Cremo company, men's hair care, all that kind of stuff. We were selling into the Walmarts, into the Walgreens, CVS's, obviously Amazon. So I was taking similar ratios and percentages from those activities. And then I did beef up my percentage for the distribution coming out of that. I also built in another, gosh, what was it? I think I did an extra 8 to 10% for what would be commission related, because I wasn't sure if they were going to try to take it as a commission base or just off of the distribution channel. So depending on how you classified it as to whether or not it'd be part of your revenue or part of your operations. So your 83% is literally just product, and it doesn't include all of your contras and all that other stuff.
So just, what you got to remember is you're dealing with a distributor. I think everybody else is back, by the way, Tristan. So when you want to open this up, Kristen, I was just finishing off a conversation before people came in. But when we, in a competitive, so the distributorship's a competitive marketplace. So you've got all these products that are vying for all this attention, right?
Exactly.
And what you're competing with against is actually the big boys that are saying, hey, we'll pay you, Mr. Sales Rep, $10 a case to simply get our product into a store. And that's what you're competing with. And so when they come, they don't, at the end of the day, they're competing for dollars. And it doesn't matter how much anybody wants your product. If they can get $10 by placing this product and they got to work really hard to do something for you, the likelihood is they put their attention over here. So with my wine product, basically, I mean, we were priced out of the market simply because we didn't have the capital to compete with these larger brands. And so regardless of the margin, like our margin, we were making negative money on getting our product into stores, simply to try to get velocity. So it ends up being really expensive. Alex is somebody from Genius Juice you may want to talk to kind of about that process. Anyway, I'll shut up. I let others get to questions.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. You can go ahead and gosh. So I can see that there's a comment from Warren in the chat field. Warren, did you want to share that out verbally with us? Oh, and as an FYI, if your microphones are on from the breakout room session, you may want to turn it back off unless you want to be heard.
There were a few things that we discussed. This was the first time that a lot of us had seen a virtual presentation. So not looking at the camera because you've got multiple screens. So move the two choices or whatever to the same screen that you have the camera on. So you're always looking at the screen and the camera. Adding a virtual background. I don't know if anybody knows how to do that, but you have the opportunity in Zoom to put your brand or your virtual background. If you don't have a real background, I'm just using my sales booth that I have at a trade show, but you can actually put a very cheap green screen, or you don't even need one. Zoom allows you to take a picture, put the background, and you can do branding while you present. And then starting with a video introduction on a screen may be very valuable, because in a minute and a half, you can tell your story with a relatively inexpensive way of using iMovie or whatever editor, put it together, tell your story, and then you can have a discussion, because we felt like it's a new way of talking, and doing it the same way is very difficult. It's hard to listen, watch, and take in information all at the same time. So learning how to present on Zoom might be just a skill that we have to learn. And then remind everybody to mute. If somebody's not muted and they make a noise, the screen changes to their view automatically. And I found that you were trying to keep your screen viewed. As soon as you talk, your screen will come up. But when somebody else makes a noise and they're not muted, they get control of the screen. So you can control that all at once by muting everybody.
Yeah, Warren, we had some challenges with unmuting everybody last week, which is why we figured we would try it with the honor system this week. But that is a follow-up question. Warren, where would you go ahead and give yourself a custom background?
Oh, it's in the settings. My computer doesn't allow it.
You have to be in the app. You have to be in the app, not online, not in the browser. And then it's where you have the stop video function. The little on the right-hand side, you've got a couple of choices, and then you can choose a virtual background and have that put in.
That would make things a lot easier, so I don't have to keep cleaning my bedroom.
It's just a branding thing.
I'm actually sitting at a funky angle, just that way you get the pretty corner.
And then, sorry, the other thing that somebody mentioned was using a good mic or a mic close to you instead of the computer. It changes the echo and maybe makes it a little bit more, profound when you're talking. Looks like Scott there's got a mic right up, ready to go.
Along those lines, Kristen, and this is kind of a cheap and easy workaround. One of the things that does help with mic echo is if you can talk in the direction of a lot of soft surfaces. Curtains, beds, bedding. What happens with walls is that they're hard surfaces, and acoustically it bounces sound waves back at you. So if you're talking right up against a window, and I'm sorry, there is a window here, you might be able to tell by the light. If I was talking at the window, all that glass would actually bounce the sound directly back at me and at my mic. So cheap and easy workaround, just finding a place where you can talk where you're not talking facing a flat, hard surface.
That is a
And
good idea.
if anybody else has a question, go ahead, speak up, throw your hand up in the chat window, because I heard a lot of great comments. And Mark, I'm going to pick on you because you typed one in. Could you share about what you typed into the chat window?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I like the presentation, thank you. A couple of presentation tips. There's a bright light shining behind you, directly behind you. So if you close the blinds more fully, or maybe put something just to block out the light. Whereas when you're backlit, kind of your face fades away a little bit. And there's a way in Zoom to share just the window, not the full screen. Maybe not right now, but it's a way to do that. When you have the big green share button, you press share, and it gives you like an option. Select a window or an application that you want to share. And again, you have to be in the app to make that work, I think. So those were the presentation tips. While I'm talking, I wanted to know more about how it's clinically proven. Can you tell us some more details about that?
The big piece that's been clinically proven is the D-ribose. There is the company name, but I'm not sharing that right now. They have a patented process over how they create the D-ribose strand, the chemical strand, and they have gone through the additional layers of testing. So that way we can say that it has been proven, clinically proven, to rejuvenate the energy levels. The chew themselves, so that's a product that we're putting into the chew. The chew itself, we are planning on doing testing, but we're not going to be able to, because unless I go through the FDA testing, I'm not going to be able to say proven to reduce symptoms or anything like that, unless I go through the very expensive FDA testing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Ali, it looks like you've got some good comments. Could you please go ahead and share those out verbally?
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure, but I'm mute for. So I do lots of Zoom stuff for the last 3 years. I actually consult from home. And one of the things that I learned, if you put a light behind your computer and shine the light toward your face, it will make it much, much easier to see you. And the other thing is, some other people actually gave the comments to you. There's a light behind you that makes it harder to see you. Okay.
Yeah.
So any light in front of you, right behind the computer, will help you quite a bit. Regarding your business, I was gonna say, do you currently have any website? And there isn't like so. Yes.
Yes, the website is coming hopefully at the end of this week. Crossing fingers and toes. I was told about this yesterday morning sometime. So there were a few pieces I was hoping to have set up before I actually presented, but it's all good. But yeah, hopefully the website is coming quickly.
No, the reason I'm saying is the website is one of the least expensive, cheapest. I don't want to call it cheap because it makes it cheaper. Least expensive way of going to the market, proving yourself, getting to the front of the people, and marketing yourself, and finding out how much it really costs you to advertise and people to go to your website. Also, like, you can, if you have your product, you can go and try to sell it through Amazon, but Amazon is incredibly expensive to do business with. I mean, I do have a business that I do through Amazon, but but I think they make far more money than I do. And also, there is a monthly meeting for Amazon sellers that, if you're not aware of, you might want to check them out, and you can get lots of information from them. It's in the Nevo Nexus building, but probably they're not doing these meetings these days. You might want to reach out to see how they're actually getting it. Good luck, though.
Thank you.
Matt, you had a quick question yet, or on traction?
Yeah, Kristen, maybe this goes into, hopefully you guys can hear me. My internet connection is kind of terrible. This kind of goes into the story. I think the story of the product's great, and especially, I mean, you're making it timely with what, I mean, and maybe there's a little bit of tongue in cheek with the, you know, birth rate type stuff, but I guess I asked about traction, you know, any sales type of data, that type of stuff would help the story. The other thing is like really simple testimonials, whether it's from an end consumer or a distributor or a sales, you know, a store or something like that. Do you have any like real like strong testimonials from third parties that kind of help tell that story?
For my product?
Yes.
Not yet. I thought I mentioned it, but maybe I need to write it on the slide that we just finished the formulation. They're making it and they should have it in the next couple weeks, just in time for my presentation. The coronavirus slowed it down a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, somebody's got a really interesting conversation happening in their background. If you don't want to be heard, remember, mute your mic. For Arash, could you go ahead and share out your comments verbally?
Sure. So, Kristen, thank you for presenting this morning. This is challenging for everyone as we're beginning to learn to work remotely and also learn how to better present using this type of technology. So I liked the fact that you've come up with the idea that you have and that you're tying it in with what's going on in the market right now. As far as your presentation skills, the slides, the story, virtual presentation, there have been a lot of good comments. I'll add maybe a nuance to some of them. As far as, you know, the camera itself is concerned, the virtual presentation, people have mentioned looking at the camera. I think you can go a step beyond that. Think of the camera sort of the same way that people for news anchors or others on TV treat it as a person, treat it as if you're speaking to someone directly. So the same way that you would have a conversation in person with someone, how animated you are, how you try to smile or have facial expressions to get their attention, you want to treat the camera the same way because all of us on this other side are paying attention to that. So people will sit up and listen a little bit more if you treat it that way. Second, I would say your stories, I would expand a little bit more on the stories themselves. Maybe we heard earlier that maybe you should be using a video. I would add whether it's in the video itself or the story that you tell, give that personal story that talks about the triumph of going over the mountain and reaching the top. The imagery that presents, if you tell it in a storyline, is what will get us engaged and get people's attention. And also, lastly, the language I think that you use. Our team was a little bit concerned that maybe it wasn't appropriate for, let's say, the VCs or investors that may be listening. You certainly have to pay attention to whom you're presenting or which audience you're going after. The language that you use, you know, talking about vomiting and hitting the bathroom or the toilet or whatnot. It may be appropriate, for example, for the target customers you're going after, the 20 to 40-year-olds, but it may not necessarily be appropriate for the VCs or investors who may be interested in seeing your product or beginning to invest in your company. So overall, I think you have a good start. It's a question of taking those stories and how you're presenting, tying that in a little bit more, refining it, getting yourself ready for your competition that's coming up. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to listen to your presentation.
Thank you.
Arash, I had a couple of comments on what you were saying. So with the word choices of things like vomit, would you have been more okay with it, putting your I'm playing investor hat on, if it had been obviously funny?
Right.
Because my take on that is, honestly, even investors have tossed their cookies, hurled their guts out, paid homage to the porcelain god.
Yeah,
They've
exactly.
done all of it,
Yeah.
possibly more often than the rest of it. So would you have been more okay with those word choices if they had been done in a really humorous way? Because honestly, that's what she's talking about.
I hear you, and I completely agree with you. I think, Tristan, to your point, tying it back into that story and making it a little bit comedic is certainly a way to get people's attention. So agreed. I'm not necessarily saying don't use it, but I'm saying use the proper context and a good story to tell it.
Thank you. And I also, Kristen, very much agreed with Arash. You, when you're talking normally, you are very animated. When you were presenting, a couple of things, you were a little bit flat emotionally. I liked Arash's idea of treating the camera like a real person and looking straight at it. One of the cheap and easy workarounds that I use when I'm doing more of a presentation rather than an MC type thing is I try to put something on my screen really close to the camera so that I remind myself, look at the camera, not at the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because that'll make a big difference is if you can kind of, you know, treat that camera like it is a real person. The other thing, and this is a weird one, and I actually do not notice it in you normally as much as I did in your presentation. You were doing more upspeak than normal, which is where at the end of a sentence, you go up at the end, which typically indicates a question. And I only bring it up because, and I've men and women both do this. Women, however, get called out on it more often in my experience as sounding unsure of themselves, probably because of the register that we speak in. So go ahead and I would listen to a recording of yourself so that you can see where it is that you're going up at the end of a sentence, as opposed to sounding really, really decisive. Make sense? And Jim Seidel, you are up next on deck. Thank you for raising your hand.
Thank you. My video's messed up. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Here's the question. In a lot of ways, this is a chicken egg problem because if I have nausea, I need a quick fix. So how do you get the product out there? How are you thinking on getting people to know that this is one of many or perhaps the best solution before I get nausea?
That actually I need to explain it better on why we chose the market strategy to go with women that are experiencing morning sickness and also the chemotherapy patients, because most of, more specifically, those are the ones that the individuals do a lot more research when these problems start popping up. The other group that does research would be your the recurring nausea people. There's a lot of individuals that have a recurring sense of nausea, or they know about it before they go on a trip because they experience morning sickness or motion sickness. So I need to explain that better. Thank you.
And we've got on deck Richard Brazel.
Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
As always, it's nice seeing you again, and thanks for coming on today. So I'll keep it simple. A lot of people have told you about the personal story at the beginning. I agree, the personal story at the beginning is very nice. I will add that if you're going to use some form of video or film clip or something at the beginning, when you're doing a pitch, is the last time you ever want it to go bad and not work. So make sure it works, make sure it's simple, and make sure you know hands down how to make it run and fix it if it doesn't work quickly. Otherwise you lose time against when you're pitching, you know, your total time. So another thought I had for you is there's not a lot of information yet about your costs and how your cost of goods change. For example, if you make 1,000 of these versus you make 100,000 of them. So there's also a little bit light on the financial data. So a little bit more about your financial data and showing how the more you sell, the cheaper your product normally. Most products like this get cheaper. I'm assuming the same for yours as you do more, and how that impacts your revenue. So your first 100 customers is going to be kind of expensive, but when you get to 1,000, you may be close to making money. Maybe at 10,000, your cost of goods are so low that it's really great. So make sure that you look into those financial pieces.
Oh yeah.
What was it called? D-ribose. In my group, I asked people if they had ever heard of it. None of them had, and I hadn't either. So my only thought here for you is you're going to get questions about it because there are going to be people probably in your audience that have never heard of it either, especially if they're medical or PhDs in the audience. So make sure you understand exactly what that is, exactly how it works, what are the negative effects of it if they're taking it long term. For example, I looked it up because I didn't know what it was. It says if you're diabetic, you have to be very careful in taking it because it will lower your blood sugar. Have all that really well down because you really are probably going to get a couple of questions on it because people won't know what it is. And the last thing I have for you is maybe consider not ending with a condom comment, because that was the last thing that would have been left on your screen. And your screen, this was a little bit to the previous comment. That data is not bad if you use it seriously as a future opportunity coming, right? So the market's going to be growing in the future. You can predict that. You've got some predictions there, but I wouldn't leave the last slide as opposed to a picture of you saying, thanks very much and see me with questions, to a comment about condoms. It's just, you might just want to think about your audience again in that. But the data is good, because when you talk about your marketing slides, you can talk about future growth opportunities that are coming because of the situation we're in right now. And yes, it is a little funny. So the only thing about being funny, Kristen, is I don't know you at all. So I'm just going to tell you this. If you're a funny person normally, then it's okay to try to be funny. I have lots of experience with food servers, and I told them to be funny, and then what they said to the table was not funny. They were trying to be funny, it just didn't work. So if it's not normal for you to be hysterical, don't try to be hysterical. Just maybe a little light humor, but don't go overboard. And overall, it's just really great to see the progress you're making in your presentation. Keep it up, you're going to do well.
Thank you.
Richard, that was a very well stated comment about the last image that you leave your audience with. And I hadn't actually thought about it that way, but yeah, you're right.
That was just a 1 million cup special. I threw that one in for this audience.
We have, so I actually had a couple of comments that were kind of related to that. And one of them was actually on that D-ribose. Is it being used like in energy drinks? Because holy cow, I'm actually, my energy drink is coffee. That's all that I'm really comfortable with is caffeine in coffee flavor or tea flavor. But I know that a lot of people, they go for the Red Bull, they go for the other energy drinks. Is it being used in those energy drinks now?
No. Most of the time, it's not really being used in energy drinks or other things. It's more of for a lot of products that you'd find at like a GNC store or another supplement marketplace, where the individuals are they're athletic, they're very healthy, they're trying to get to the next level of their endurance. That is essentially where most of these products are current. Products that use the D-ribose, at least the one that I'm looking at using, that's where those sit. So they're not in your energy drinks. It's not in your caffeine products. But so certain types of nutritional bars, it's in a powder format. So like protein shakes, a lot of things like that would have this in it.
So that might be something to kind of bear in mind, going back to that idea of clinical trials. Is it safe? Because one of the questions that I would have is, is it just that D-ribose is so much more expensive than sugar and caffeine? Because I'm sure it is more expensive, but is it so much more expensive? So that would be something for you to think about. A quick one, and I'm sorry, I am looking at the notes that I took. You had an early slide with the small glass bowl of chews. Is that what you're currently using or what your product looks like? Because I was not sure from the slide.
That's what it's going to look like.
Okay, it's not appetizing.
Okay. I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
So think about how can you make that look more like and I realize a lot of soft chewable things, unless you make them into gummy bear shapes, which might not be a bad idea, they're not going to look super appetizing, which is why the packaging and how the individual chews are packaged becomes kind of important. I kind of wanted to hear really, really, really early, very explicitly, what are the problems with the current solutions? People have bad reactions to the pharmaceuticals, and it creates other problems like migraines. And ginger chews are loaded up with sugar. They're not organic, and there's lots of other stuff that might be in them that causes other issues. I wanted to hear that problem really explicit and really early. I loved the idea that it absorbs through the mouth. I thought that was actually a really cool thing that we didn't touch on when we talked about it. Especially because there's a lot of current solutions that you have to ingest orally, which if you are tossing your cookies is tough. Oh, and how long does the effect of the anti-nausea last? That was one of the big questions for me, because if it only lasts for 15 minutes, that's way different than 8 hours of relief. Do you guys have those numbers yet?
Not yet.
Fair.
Hopefully.
One of the other ones, and Kathleen, I'm going to go ahead and out you a little bit. Kathleen has had some experience with anti-nausea stuff, and she was suggesting have more on the chemistry and have a list of active ingredients so that people know what it is that's going on and how it would compare and stack up against other solutions that are out there. Mark H, you had some more comments as well. And Richard, is your hand still up or is it up again?
Yeah, I guess I'll go forwards. I thought some good stuff. As a chemist myself, I really like the idea of having the active ingredients and knowing what they do, because it's the first thing I'm going to look up before I actually put those in my mouth. I like basically I agree with what Tristan just said. So state what clinical or consumer problem you're actually solving. Presentation stuff, you can probably see my chat, that you can actually drag the zoom window onto your other monitor, just put it like a couple of inches below the camera, so you're not turning your head to the right when you look at the zoom window, and then back to camera, and back to the right, and so on. Also, someone else is talking about lighting. I've got some lighting over here, and I use some lighting to make my face look a bit better, especially in the daytime when there's a strongly lit background. I need to do better as well, but I might get like a light around the camera, just so it's a bright, even light on my face. Because if it's too dark, it looks like it's like an anonymous interview on a TV special. Agree with other speakers. I'd also say perhaps make your last slide be ask, thank you, and your contact information, email, website, whatever you want to put up there. Always give the speaker, the guy with money, a way to contact you, or the person with money. I've been poked on that a few times, and it's been a really useful tip that I've found. So that's all I had.
Mark, I really like that. Always give the people you want stuff for a way to give you their stuff. We are coming up on 9 o'clock and I don't see any hands up or any new messages. So before we officially break, and incidentally, we are going to be leaving this meeting up for a little while anyway, while people are still interested in chit-chatting. But a quick call out. One of the things that some of us are using and already on is the Slack channel, so that people can go ahead and stay in communication, even when it's not Wednesday morning, because virtual reality requires different ways of meeting people and Starbucks is closed. So if you go to the ocengine.com/1MC, there are a couple of ways you can join the Slack channel. One is a box in the upper left-hand corner saying join the conversation. It is bright orange, very difficult to miss, and a good way to go ahead and get on that Slack channel by essentially inviting yourself. In the lower right-hand corner, there's also a pop-up chat box called Ask an Entrepreneur. That will also dump you out in Slack. There's some kind of cool stuff going on there that you can definitely learn more about, as well as on ocengine.com. One of the big ones that we're doing, that Matt is doing, is providing a platform for more or less virtual reality live shows. So there's some kind of fun stuff that OC Engine is doing. The Slack channel is a great way to go ahead and become aware of some of those things, because I know that as we are all tied to our house physically, we need to find virtual ways to go beyond our house. With that, the time is now 9 o'clock. Matt, did you have any comments to add?
Just the one comment.
Please.
Just go to ocengine.com, not /1MC, to
Oh.
join the channel. The 1MC channel will be up later in the week. But right now you can just go to ocengine.com, and then in the upper left corner will be the link.
So with that, I invite all of you, go ahead, stick around, chit chat with each other. That Slack channel is a place for you to go ahead and continue networking if you haven't already stumbled across it. For myself, I'm going to excuse myself, but I will be back in 5 minutes with a fresh cup of coffee. Thank you all for playing, and we will see you next week.
Thank
See
you.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks. I'm happy to hang around a bit if anybody wants to chat, just general.
I'm around, Warren. I took my video off so I can walk around and refill my coffee. But how's business going for you in these weird times?
Weirdly, I think I'm spending a lot of time just thinking about what a post-world, a post-corona world might look like if in fact it's changed, which I suspect it has. I don't know, how it's going to change, other than I think you have to create a new world of what it is likely to be. And in the world that we're in terms of sport training, there's no sport at the moment, there's no training at the moment, there's no games. So instead of being the single resource for training, I've had to pivot and put everything online. Hopefully we go online today as a kind of remote consultation. I use Kajabi now and put all my content under basically a training program. So you log on, you buy the program, you do the training, much lower cost, but obviously global scale, I think is going to be important. We're all learning how to use Zoom. Maybe not experts yet, but in a month's time, Zoom will be, everybody will be a good user of Zoom. And, I believe that there's no reason to have $120 face-to-face education one-on-one in a training situation at our performance center, where for $5 or $10, you could get 8,000 people around the world logging in and having this micro consultation. You just have this kind of thing, but all over the world. And I think you have to, I worry that my advice is you need to survive this. And what I spend a lot of time thinking about is, I think you have to survive, but be ready for a new world. And that's interesting to me. I don't pretend that I've got the answer, but I can't imagine it's going to be the same.
I've been thinking about content quite a bit as well, and I question whether or not people are willing to pay $5 or $10 to do anything online. And online may just be branding and marketing, and you film what you're doing in your normal business, and online just becomes a kind of a free marketing channel for you. But I really been questioning whether or not anybody's willing to pay anything to view me or
Correct.
anybody doing anything online. And I know that quality of content, whatever plays into that, but that's where my head's been going.
I think that's the thing, is that if you conceive of it as what it was, then you talking, again, you might not think that you're valuable, but others might. But also you've got to remember that access to what you know in your world, given South Africa, China, Russia, all of these places who just don't have that kind of experience and access actually are willing to pay. There's as an expert, if you're a fitness instructor and you can video or film, somebody could join in from anywhere around the world at their convenience because they don't want to go out, is a new way of, and I think you have to visualize what the world will become instead of thinking about what you have today in today's world.
I guess
other people jump in. This is actually fun. This is after hours, so I can I can talk as much as I want. I agree. And so when I think about where the world's going, it means that the competition, the amount of competition that I have is exponentially more.
I agree.
And with competition, prices get driven down.
Correct.
Now that doesn't mean that I can't hold out, for that pinnacle customer that's willing to pay for me, but the mass of the market, the amount of competition for my workout video just went to the moon.
So I think you have that exact idea. Is you could, as anything, you've got a premium, exclusive, and you've got the middle majority, and then this low end. But I agree with you. That's what I worry about, is that what Zoom has done, and the mindset says that anything that you thought you had as a unique premium has now got a layer that even Amazon are going to go, wow, do I need to go to Amazon when we can do this? So I agree. I think you have to conceive of your micro learning, even online. A 6-minute presentation is a long time. So micro learning for little bits of money, but on the scale of global, I think is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But I think you have to conceive of it in your world, what you just said, in hyper competition.
Yeah,
does your business exist?
So one of the things so I've repositioned OC Engine, and maybe this is obvious, as more of like a broadcast network. So we've actually been talking about different like shows, and I'm almost thinking about this like as if PBS was built in 2020, what would it look like? That's kind of how I'm thinking. So what I'm actually thinking about is, hey, how do we capture attention for like 2 hours? And in that, if I can capture attention, even if it's 20% of people's attention for a 2-hour span of time, I've really got marketing power. And I mean, when I say I mean the network has marketing power. So that's some of the ideas that I think we've been throwing around, is how do we provide content that is engaging enough to maybe a really niche audience, but to really kind of extend the viewing time rather than trying to shrink it down into really short segments.
But sorry, I'm talking, other guys,
no.
Please jump in. But
yeah.
if you have this kind of conversation with 10, 15, 20, however many, and then everybody is, for example, watching a sports game. So let's say soccer, basketball, in the next 3-4 months may very well be played with no audience, right? No real audience. They might start games before they bring in crowds of 10 or 15,000. Could you have a broadcast channel where you can have a conversation with people about the game, and people will pay for that intimacy? They won't pay to watch the game, they'll pay for this additional ecosystem around. So if you're having a conversation with somebody that's valuable, there's value in that conversation. Charge people to participate and ask questions and be that exclusive view.
I understand.
I'm not suggesting that that's a business model to talk about.
No, it's in it. I've been thinking. I mean, I feel like we're having this conversation, but I'm a little bit reversed from you, where I'm thinking more like, well, NASCAR moved to doing virtual. Like NASCAR is playing video games and televising that. Maybe soccer moves to, we're just going to play video games. And I'm not saying like that replaces, the Premier League or anything like that, but maybe a segment of the population is now playing video games, and a broadcast could basically, if somebody's broadcasting their FIFA 2020 tournament, you as a sports trainer or whatever may quote unquote sponsor that in order to provide the commentary and talk about players and how they got, what I mean? Like you can interject your own kind of marketing over top of a broadcast that people are watching for entertainment. So I'm kind of thinking about it as this mesh of sales and entertainment kind of coming together. But that's where I don't think anybody's going to pay for that. I think it just gives you a sales channel. So maybe I'm thinking about maybe I'm like on a different side of, the market from what you're talking about.
I'm purely looking at how to monetize information and content, which is no different than what we used to do. We used to just deliver it in a different way. And that's what I just spend a lot of time thinking about. My business model in front of an investor is almost impossible to present now.
Yeah.
So I've needed to pivot to a online scalable educational model where you can take my information and apply it to your trainers, your athletes as a coach. If you're going to start up a hockey season, what are you going to do to your team? You are 12 people. You have to train them. They have to do exercise. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to play their sport. You're going to have this kind of conversation with them. You have to make money, and you've got value, or do you have enough valuable information to share with them? We're going to do on Monday, this is the workout. Tuesday, this is a workout. Friday, we're going to test, and you're going to give me feedback, and we're going to do a different workout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You have to be able to get money for that. Otherwise, a coach is going to be out of business. And it's going to be different, small. So anyway, I'd love to hear from everybody. Sorry, I'm being...
Hey, Warren, have you thought about doing, so I kind of see the service as two different levels. Like on one level, you have kind of a universally applicable sports training regimen for specific sports. So let's say baseball, right? Which seems to be a big one for you. Like, could you utilize, Skillshare, Udacity, a lot of these kind of subscription-based, think like Masterclass, and just kind of here's how to take your high school baseball career from competitive to, recruiter level, right? And so that's like a track. So like there's like level 1, level 2, level 3, right? And those are packages that people buy, because this isn't universally, it's not mass applicable content. You're not trying to get the average baseball player. You're trying to get to the elite. And so people will pay for that, right? That's why they come and do trainings at your facility. So that's the universally applicable version. And then beyond that, how do you digitize the more granular feedback? So you have your testing facilities, which obviously on site is a challenge at the moment. So how do you digitize that? Can, film your swing or do the, print these documents out and do this test at home and send in your scores. So you have kind of a more personal one-on-one touch point, and the price for that package is going to be higher. But you can actually use, the good part about Udacity and Skillshare and all these other things is that they have built-in marketing platforms and established user bases. And so while it's a revenue generating item, once you produce the content and put it on those platforms, you have an asset for the company that's generating revenue without additional work. And it should be lead gen for your kind of personalized package, which is, work directly with one of our, coaches online, through digital communication.
And yeah, so thanks, Scott. I agree 100%. And that was kind of what we did with Kajabi. You log in, you buy it, and then we'll build out the community, we'll build out modules, we'll build out content, and then hopefully down the line become recognized as the place to physically come if you need that next level, or buy packages. But I think what's also going to be interesting is we can have a conversation with a MLB player in Florida, put that together. That is valuable.
That's great. I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's because they got time, they need to do that. There's a couple of tips. You do a video, put it together, and it becomes super valuable. So Matt,
what was the name of that platform? Kajabi?
Kajabi. K-A-J-I.
And this is where I think you're in a different market, because for me, the cost of producing content and trying to drive people to that content, just not there. I'd rather and I think about like Peloton and where Peloton's moving into this live content. I like that. For me, I mean, I've never used the Peloton, but or any of that type of stuff. I live in 500 square feet, so not enough room. But for me, that I would think that immediate live interaction, that's actually what I want. And I understand you're like, well, then we could upsell them to a package or something like that. I don't know, like the cost that goes into the content production, I don't know how you recover it right now, because
I
like
think,
Zoom's costing, this costs nothing to make. I could do a yoga session. Yep, production value is going to be lower, absolutely, but the cost that it's going to take me to produce that and market it, I've eliminated. And the question to me is anybody willing to pay for that production value right now? Maybe in the future they are, but like right now, coming out of it, it seems like a real long time before you'd be able to recoup that.
But
that
I mean,
cost.
I look at both our trainer and my wife, who's a personal trainer. She's going to do a 1 hour training session. She does yoga, Pilates, and then strength and conditioning. And she'll get 35 people to log in because of her social channels. At the moment, she's being paid to do that because the gym is closed. But I could imagine that gets filmed, or she just does it at 8 o'clock in the morning, and people from all over the world would pay a minimal fee, but she's got scale. So you got 8,000 people paying $5. That's worthwhile, because otherwise she's paying $120 to do exactly the same thing, but on a one-on-one.
No, I understand. So maybe I can, I think maybe if I talk about a specific business, I can relate this. So I'm working with a professional musician who, he does like concerts and stuff like that, but most of his income's teaching. So he's moving digital. He needs to up that. So we've actually talked about is, all this stuff's on, Zoom, FaceTime, whatever. So he's recording all that content, right? I mean, it's free. It's basically free content. He's already getting paid for that lesson. So we've talked about a couple different models. One model would be package this as lessons and sell the 5-week, right? All that. What I've actually argued is we're going to give away all of your prior lessons for free. We're going to automate posting that stuff on YouTube. We're going to post your YouTube channel and say, go learn piano for free. All of my prior lessons are up there. Go take a look at them. Have fun. What people are actually paying him for, they're actually paying him for that one-on-one. No, wait, like how do I learn to play piano? I understand that you taught that person, but how do I learn how to, give me the specific little nuggets to teach me specifically. And that's what people are paying, for a lesson for. So we're using all of his content, we're giving it away in order to drive people to his business to buy a lesson from him. And that's how I'm thinking about how to actually use content. Just give it away. We already get paid for it. I don't need to get paid for it again. Drive more people into the funnel, get that funnel, spinning. And then once we've got that, once I got eyeballs, dude, we can figure out how to sell anything. But really just driving eyeballs to the content is what we're trying to do.
But so everybody jump in. I do want to pull up one slide and just show you something on that, but please jump in if anybody's got a thought on it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
I was gonna hop in, Warren, and just.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
I did a little bit of research. So Kajabi is a platform that you can build your own marketplace on top of, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So my only pushback to that, while I appreciate the desire to own the channel, like you don't have an established user base. I mean, you do from your on-site training, but like you don't have thousands of users that have accounts on your platform and everything. You have to build that all from the ground up. And so it's kind of like saying, I want a place to share photos with my audience. Like, okay, well, go use Instagram because there's millions of users already on that platform.
I got it. Yep.
I would push back on that approach to just say, look, you might want to put your classes on these other platforms to get it established, grow your brand name, right? So that people know the brand. Then if you want to take it back off of, Skillshare and Udemy and force everyone to go into your branded channel, fine. But
I love it.
You have
great.
word of mouth from player to player, coach to coach, dad to dad, mom to mom, whatever it is. Like people have to come find you. And the advantage of those established platforms is that people are already there. So that I got to hop off.
I love it.
That's
awesome. Thanks.
So interesting idea, Scott. However, I will say that one of the analogs to that, although not for video sharing, but for product exposure, would be Etsy. And one of the challenges with Etsy is that daily living expenses of somebody living in the Ukraine is significantly different from the living expenses of somebody living in the United States. Additionally, one of the big differences once you're talking about a global level is time valuation. Because I have seen things for sale on Etsy that I can guarantee did not actually cost, you know, half an hour to create, but they're selling them for $8.
Sure.
Because that $8 American is worth 4 hours of their time. For me, something that takes 4 hours of my time had better be either something that I'm giving up voluntarily or worth a lot more if I'm getting paid for it. So I will say that with the globalization of all this, and that's really what I think you're talking about, Warren, with that scalability, you're actually talking also about flattening out economic regions so that they're more or less comparable. And
I think you got to yeah.
I don't know how well that will actually work in the long term, or if there will end up being a cachet. Like Matt, we've talked about a little bit with the OC Engine broadcast channels. Can you add some cachet to the local connection? Can you add that cachet to make it worth more?
Again, I agree. I think these are things that we need to learn. Do you mind if I share a screen quickly?
Absolutely.
Because
Thanks,
I think
I'm dropping off. Take it easy.
Thanks, Scott. Keep well. Do you see the screen staging and experience, and is it clear to everybody?
Yes.
So this comes from a 2011, I think the original source was there, the experience economy, and I've used this a lot. I found it very valuable. This idea of going up the ladder of value, the staged experience is where Disney and all the groups that, you know, Starbucks is not about, you know, selling coffee, it's the third place, or Disney is family fun, and everybody knows the staged experience becomes super important. Now, in today's world, this is a theory. The idea of being inspired is no longer good enough. I think you have to change, or are you able to create a better client, a better consumer? And in doing this, you offer a guided transformation. So in a world of post-corona, again, this is theorized, but if loved ones are sick, or you've been quarantined, or you know, you've lost money and unemployment and all of those things, does the world fundamentally change some of the values that were prior to corona, the stock market, you know, buying shoes and all of those things? Is there a fundamental change to wellness, holistic balance, all of those things? And can you offer this transformation to be a better person? And if you are a guide to this transformation, you hook a client in. So you're no longer just selling them music lessons, but you're inspiring and you are enhancing their life. And this idea of adding that value as a transformation doesn't necessarily mean you have to be face to face. Can you be in a virtual environment?
I agree with what you're saying. I think where maybe I disagree is what the transformation has been, and I would say that everything has slid down that scale, and we're at commodity right now. This is all commodity.
Which means you have to correct. Which means
there's nothing special about what anybody's doing right now.
Except correct, which is why it slides down. So now you have to continue to have customization opportunities, which means that I'm going to check in with you. If I'm your trainer, we're going to cook dinner together, so I'll make sure that you've got the right food, because we can do that.
Right.
Or we're going to have a conversation about mindfulness in addition to the training, because we can do that. So I agree. You got to build a business model from the ground up that offers transformation, just using a different mechanism. Again, I'm you know.
No, I think it's fair. I'm not willing to jump. I think maybe where my head's at is I'm not willing to jump all the way up that ladder. I think that first step, I'm still trying to figure that out. I can't offer transformation yet.
The only thing is, as a piece of advice, not because it's of any value, is never ever diminish your value because you're making a judgment call on their wallet. Let the person make a judgment call on their wallet. That's not your job.
Absolutely. I'm the best commodity in the world.
But yeah, that's a you problem, right? So
no, I'm the best commodity. Everybody should be doing what I'm doing. You know, I don't know.
Right. So
That's my biggest struggle by far. I look at analyzed costs all the time. I'm the one that goes to the grocery store and I say, would I spend on this? So that my problem with that. So that's why the first thing I did when I had my crazy idea was I went to the store. I have a box filled with all the items on this list. I own it besides the prescription. I'm looking at the cost. How much did I spend on this just for my customer research to figure out by two, how much should it be? And someone had to remind me that don't look at it from my perspective because I'm stingy, but look at it from the perspective of how much benefit is someone getting and then charge for the benefit, not necessarily for the product.
Yeah, that's that line that says your cost is justified by the feature. The purchase price is justified by the benefit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's completely different.
Right? Well, so, and I hate to go here, but it actually is highly relevant. Part of that is the perception of the benefit from the point of view of the user. You know, when you think, and this is one of my favorite things in the world to bitch and moan about, is why are Coach bags so desirable and so expensive when they really don't last terribly long? You know, you can spend $1,000 on a Coach bag. What I do is I go out and I spend, you know, $100 on a Harvey's bag, which is made of seat belts, and I have them that have lasted and been beautiful for 10 years. It is that perception of desirability, BMW. And so for me, part of it is and Matt, this might go back to what you're talking about a little bit, but how do you create not just the value, but the perception of the value? You know, I've talked about it with a lot of people. Should you ever do free events? People tend to not value that which is free. And I don't know if you know, that is one of the reasons why at 1 Million Cups, because it is required to be a free event, and because I think it should be a free event. But I don't want people to devalue the information that they get from it. And so I go ahead and I talk about the fact this is unusual, this is cool, this is amazing. Because I do want that perception of the value without the price tag.
I think it depends on where you like to play too. I like to play in kind of the down market, just where I like to live. I get along with those people better than I do rich people. So, I mean, not even rich people, you know what I mean? Like people that are willing to buy luxury, let's say.
There's a great line that says there's only two types of consumers. Those who have money and use it to save time, and those who have time and use it to save money. It's a great way of thinking about what you're doing. Because if you're delivering convenience, you don't have to travel, you don't have to do this, you can get this and this and this, then I'm going to use my money to save that time, and it's worthwhile. Right. And then you can reverse engineer that. And I've got a lot more time for, maybe shoes than I do for a Mercedes. So I use those two commodities which I don't have either of enough time or enough money to play around with.
And Warren, just to go ahead and tag on to that, I love what you said. One of the things that was one of the best learning experiences for me in the world was actually changing out my own brakes on my car. I had somebody to help me. I wasn't going it alone. But that's a pain in the ass. It is worth paying somebody $200 or $300 to change the brakes on my car because it took me all freaking afternoon.
Unless you had all freaking afternoon to waste.
Oh, I did, but it wasn't fun.
It gets faster with practice. I changed my own brakes.
Warren, I have a question
You're
for you. This
awesome.
is Arash. This conversation is interesting. I'm curious, has this led to you actually beginning to think about what your next product offering is going to be?
Yes, absolutely. So we had a business plan which called for train the trainer, physically doing training. I put everything I know online. It took me about a week and a half. I'm hopefully going to launch it today. And we've taken our cost structure from $4.99 for 2 days of physical training to $99 and expanded looking at scale. We're doing one-on-one conversations, and I've added a product line to support the basic training. So our visual agility training that you can do now comes with a kit that if you wanted to learn how to do it, and then if you needed some of the products, we've got all of that. So that model changed significantly. I also don't think I can raise money for it. I think I have to start at the bottom and prove that the new model has any traction before I can scale. But the conversations that we've had with this virtual environment, there's a company called Connect 6 or 6 Connect. I attended a virtual conference. So I logged on, Sport Techie had it. I logged in, lobbied, spoke to a whole lot of people, listened to Tracked. I went to the exhibit hall, and I did that from my desktop. And I think having a niche virtual environment that has learning, it has a trade show, it has live commentary. So I've conceived of the business as if it was a virtual platform only. And then the trainers around the world who learn my system can offer the one-on-one in their local areas. But what I'm trying to do is I'm global scale of experts. And then just personally, I've got 2 other projects that I had to restart. One of them was a integrated eyewear face mask project that I had already going. So I had done all the prototyping and everything for a world where I don't believe that you will walk outside without some kind of face wear protection. The same thing that 9/11 left us with was security lines, different way to pack. You needed different products. You didn't take certain things. You changed the whole way you traveled. I believe that you will change the whole way you will interact with people. You won't stop interacting, but I can't imagine getting on a plane without the mindset of personal protection. Now, I don't think you walk around with a surgical mask because surgical masks are not cool. But I think that, you know, they're not ergonomic, they don't work with glasses, you can't breathe, but all of those things. So I think there's a way to conceive of that. And that's why, and then I've been spending time trying to understand what I think the world will look like after coronavirus. 24 million people unemployed, even for a short period of time, travel, interaction, learning online. I mean, my kids are at college and now they're studying online. You know, people are going to go, well, you know, I can't pay this now to go out of state to do a course. Anyway.
So Warren, just to go ahead and kind of tag into that, because we've actually in the last 20 years, and I am dating myself, we have actually had 2 major dips in the hospitality and conference industry, which is not actually my specialty. It's just an area that I happen to know a lot about. One of which you mentioned was 2011, and the other one of which was the big stock market crash about 10 years ago. Both of those resulted in huge dips. And although I think that you're right in terms that people will get more comfortable with virtual reality for a lot of things, I actually foresee, I'm really curious to see how it will affect more conventional offices, where right now work from home might be an option, but only 1 day a week. A lot of that is kind of predicated on the idea that a lot of managers and bosses and supervisors use really shitty metrics to establish productivity. And the way that they measure productivity is butts in chairs. And I have talked to people like in the last 2 days for whom that is their reality. And their managers are having to explore, well, what does productivity actually look like? How do we metricize this when we are unable to use butts in chairs? So I foresee this, that one of the long-term effects will actually be how businesses approach virtual working conditions and whether or not they're open to the idea that productivity can happen even when you can't see the butt in the chair. As far as the meeting in person and the having in-person events, the meeting industries were really concerned. And I was more in touch with that particular industry around 2009, 2010. They were super worried that life would never go back to normal. And although it took a while, people did actually, because those in-person events, they have a certain draw that for a certain segment. And it's actually one of the reasons why because I've actually with making 1 million cups, just our little free event, I have actually been one of the people putting on the brakes towards having a hybrid virtual and live event, because I was really worried that people would go, well, gosh, I can just go ahead and pop on from my computer because I don't feel like getting up in the morning. And this has been a really great eye opener for me. The feedback that I've gotten is that there are a few people for whom that will probably be true. More of them are people who would not show up, you know, because they've got other commitments or other things going on that would prohibit them from being there in person, but that they would still prefer to attend in person if they had that bandwidth.
But so just to discuss, because I agree with you, I think what 9/11 changed was that you had to put on a elevated show to get people to get on a plane to come to you. And that time with family had to be that much better than maybe prior, where you would just get on a plane and go. So I think your quality of event, Matt, you'd mentioned it, I think you really do have to put on a quality event, not just use the technology as the event. The technology is the facilitator, but you need a Mark Cuban or you need a big name to get people to come in and pay. Nobody's listening to me, but staging an experience and then transformation is how do you get after them, the next call, etc. So those are, I think, I agree with you, but I believe that you have to think about not surviving this, but thinking about your business in a way that is relevant to a behavior change. Now, how bad is that behavior change? I don't know. I mean, we all just reading headlines, and I'm not a virologist, but I imagine that we are learning skills now. So as a leader, a manager often managed through fear of physically being there and developed tools and tricks, your position in your office, the size of office, your access, how you structured a corporate, and you used to manage that way. Now, how do you manage, what skills do you need as a team leader in a virtual environment? Short events, do you start the morning? How do you start the morning? How are you motivating people? How are you having a conversation? Because people are people, and the need to belong is important. Your Facebook, your sharing personal stories on Facebook or groups within Facebook takes on a different meaning as a leader, which is, I don't know, but I imagine that John Maxwell will write a brilliant book and I'll read it, and that's what I did with everything else.
Well, who knows? Maybe you'll write the brilliant book.
No.
Well, because
I've got an accent.
That is one of the things that's really interesting about the here and now, is this is something that not only on a national level, but on a global level, this type of shutdown is kind of unprecedented. And
but
we're
it shows
all
what a global world is, right? I mean, what we were maybe and this is not a political statement, but countries were being internally focused over a period of time, and that was a global trend, right? So however you describe it, I want to stay away from politics. What it shows is that it really truly is a global world, and global collaboration and interaction become maybe a new paradigm or a parallel paradigm, but it doesn't matter where we are today having a conversation. And I think that's super useful and interesting and important, and I don't know what else. So I mean, you know, I'd be super interested to listen to other guys instead of me thinking and thoughts.
Other people, globalization, go.
I
While I go fill my coffee.
Isolationism, I think, is going to continue. So a flip side of that, to what you're describing, Warren, is I think the isolationist mentality may actually get accentuated as a result of what we're seeing, because the world will be seen more as fearful than what it really is. So so that may be another trajectory. It may not be the exact trajectory, but to your point, how that ties back in, talking about the line here, you know, the show of safety is going to be important. You brought up the use of masks, or at airlines, for example, the TSA security that we saw after 9/11. Show of sanitary, how sanitary the airport itself is, or how the airplane is, or how sanitary a particular person is. That becomes important. That could lead to products or services that would be offered along those lines. I'm sure everybody's already heard about the PAPR face masks that are used by certain doctors. It's a positive airflow that's put on, but it's something that where you see a person's face. To your point, use of surgical masks may not be necessarily something that we do, but possibly something that we put on where we can still have a human interaction with someone, but still have the feeling of personal safety, that you're not necessarily getting any of their germs or bugs that we're all afraid of now.
But even over the counter, you know, workers who are a target, who are serving all these people, right? You might be socially distant, but you have to go through one area. They're going to need some kind of device, and at the moment they are terrible, right? They're not ergonomic. They're just functional. You know, how do you, like, do you have gloves now? I'm in the eyewear business, so you go to an optometrist, put on eyewear. It's on the shelf. You have to clean it before and after it goes on, because somebody is not going to want to put on 12 pairs of glasses that other people may or may not have done it. You know, you don't want to be in a waiting room. You know, how do you, if you're sick and you're a provider, I can't tell you how many times I went to work with flu, because we're all entrepreneurs. I didn't stay at home. Now, if you got a cough, you're gonna have to stay at home for 2 weeks.
I guess I don't see this rapid shift in tech like or like a focus on these things as problems. To be honest, I'm not wearing a mask unless somebody forces me to. I'm not afraid of it. And that might change, right? But right now, if I get it, things are gonna get worse and they'll come back. Like, I'm just not gonna wear a mask. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm gonna do. That's not how my behavior is gonna change. So from a device innovation standpoint, I don't think it's that big of a deal. What I actually see is a rapid shift in supply versus demand. I think it's a financial shift, not an innovation tech shift. It's a, like, this problem's existed. This environment just ramped it up and made it super obvious, but we have an oversupply of essentially everything and not enough demand. And so in that environment, as a consumer, I've got all the choice, all of it. And I can click on your video and then be like, screw it. I'm going to go on to something else. I'm going to click on that one, click on that one, click on that one. And actually capturing value becomes exponentially more difficult, which means that the curve of, you know, like the value curve looks like that, where only these people are going to be able to capture value out of the system, and everybody else, you're fighting for the scraps. So that's actually the shift that I see is actually a financial shift, not a we need to come up with all these new innovative
but to
devices.
win in a market, you have to be first in a new category. You can't be better than the leader, right? So the conversation around differentiation is critically important. If you are, this little exercise I often go through, everybody knows the first person who flew across the Atlantic, right? So Charles Lindbergh, if you don't know, do you know number 2? Probably not. Do you know number 3? Well, if you didn't know number 2, you probably didn't know number 3, but everybody knows Amelia Earhart.
But I know Apple, and they weren't the first people to. I mean, I know Microsoft. Like I know these companies that are, I know Slack.
Apple
They're
was
not the first person to come up with a messaging company. Like I
No,
know that.
But
I know
they
that they
were first in your mind, right? You have to be able to differentiate. And why I focus on this so much is, if I asked you why it's important to win, how would you answer that question, Matt?
It's not.
But
it's
it
not.
Is. No, it is.
No, I'm okay coming in number 2 if that means I make $10 million. Cool, man.
No,
cool.
So you're missing the point. Everybody, why is there value in winning? Please,
Warren,
everybody else answer.
I would actually go ahead and challenge you on that a little bit.
No,
People,
wait, before you do.
I think he's trying to make a different point. I think
why is it important?
Part of the answer is the recognition that you get.
And I get it. It's the way you're framing the question. Like I don't actually like it's.
No, there's a very practical reason to win. I know that it feels good and it's nice and people congratulate you and you feel means nothing. So Matt, I'm with you, right? Winning in itself is of no value, but there's a very good reason why it's important to be number 1. Because number 1 in any Forbes list you look at has double the market share of number 2.
Okay, so here's
Warren,
here's the sorry Tristan, just 1 second. What I would suggest is, you know what, Warren, I'd like you to be number 1. I want you to be number 1, and I'm going to ride your coattails. I'm going to make you do all the work. I will ride that ship to the sun. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to make. I don't care. But I don't care.
Perfect.
So when it comes to winning, win. Go ahead and win. I'm gonna sit back on Easy Street and ride those coattails. And I'm cool with the 50%. Yes, I can.
You have so if you are number 2 and getting half the share, you have to be an alternative to number 1. Right? Your investment.
No, and that's where I think the market size is big enough where what I'm saying and how I'm talking, we could offer the same product, and what I'm saying and how I'm speaking, I'm going to get some amount of slip over from you. They're just not going to like you for some reason. I don't know.
But if so,
and I'll get some amount of slip over with significantly less work.
But the market is not 2. The market is dozens. So your 1, 2, and 3 share 80% of the market. The rest share 20%. And the return on investment, that's all I'm talking about, is the amount of effort that you put into the market. If you are not number 1 or 2, is significantly less than the amount of effort 1 and 2 get as a return.
Let me ask you a question. Who's the largest bottled water manufacturer in the United States?
I couldn't even guess.
I mean, but Dasani. Okay, so we got
Coca-Cola.
Okay, anybody else?
And I don't know, I'm just guessing.
Okay, it's Niagara Water. They're a private label bottle manufacturer. I used to work there. Largest not only in America, like largest in this hemisphere. Like they are a giant company. Nobody's ever heard of them. Nobody ever guess who they are. Yet they're the largest. Nobody ever thinks of them because I don't know, because they don't have a brand. They don't market their brand. They simply attack the market in a way that nobody can compete. So I understand this mindset, but like you don't need to. I don't know.
You can't. No, but that's a great example. Is that if I've got a bottled water company now, there's very little I can do to beat that established leader who's got the market share dominance. So I have to move out of the shadow of a number 1, 2, or 3 into a new category.
Yeah,
so innovation drives that.
Sure.
And Warren, I would still challenge you on that.
Of course,
To
I'm
begin
not
with,
right. It's my opinion, so awesome.
oh, I know. To begin with, there's actually some really interesting research out there on the first to market advantages as well as the first to market disadvantages.
Yes, I
First to
agree.
market disadvantage is that you have to educate your stupid consumer. I
So
mean,
you have to be first in the mind, not to the market. I agree 100% with you. Yeah.
But additionally to that, and I know that you were trying not to bring politics into it, we've got huge disparities between the upper 1% and the bottom 90%. And part of it is actually driven by that idea that there are these super mega companies that 50 years ago, Apple could not have existed in the way that it does now. Things are changing. The marketplace is changing.
I agree 100%.
I am not sure that it will get worse. Like Arash was saying, one of the things that could happen from this particular pandemic, and I am worried about it happening, is that there is more of a general fearfulness of other, and to go back to that idea of masks very quickly, I hope to hell that we do not all live in masks, because it becomes all of us making ourselves the boy in the bubble with no immunities whatsoever because we haven't been exposed to any of it. I think that would actually be bad for us as a race, or as a critter. But there's a lot of stuff going on there with the idea of what does being number one mean? Does it have to be globally? Is it with a certain audience? And for Matt, I think that if we kind of shift from how do you get the people to how do you find your people? How do you find your tribe? Those people who they see the value in it.
I think the risk here is I talked to Herb Chi about this a little bit, talking about why is there not the environment of Silicon Valley in Southern California? And I think, Warren, the reason, and you may not agree with this, but I'll say it anyways. I think the reason I don't like the mentality of winner take all is I don't think that mentality, I don't believe, creates the ecosystem that you see in a Silicon Valley. Now, today, I would argue that the way you're approaching it, that's what Silicon Valley is today. But Silicon Valley in the 60s, that's not what it was. It was, we're going to do this. And they had access to resources. They had a ton of government money. It was set up for success for sure, but it was a rising tides. And what I would argue is the winner here should be Orange County. And I'm doing everything to actually elevate every business and every startup that's here. That's what I want to be the winner. And then cool, if there are individual winners within categories, friggin' absolutely. But I would much rather see, that type of tide rising than seeing your company explode and nobody else doing anything around here, because that's not going to help.
Agree, but your category is Orange County versus Austin versus Silicon Valley versus North Carolina. The category that you're in is, it's unlikely that you are able to build a better Silicon Valley in Orange County. So
why?
What?
I mean, I think the market has shifted so much that Silicon Valley at this point is irrelevant.
Okay, but then, are you building a better Silicon Valley, or are you building a different?
No, I'm building a different Silicon.
Okay, good.
Well, I think the community is building a different. I'm not building it.
So the community in Orange County, because of its characteristics, needs to offer an alternative, and to Austin and to Boulder, etc. Right. So all of those things come together to create a different, not a better.
Right.
And
that's fair.
Different is an alternative to what is out there.
Sure.
Right. But that the way you describe it is a positioning exercise in differentiation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that may be where I see why somebody would want to plug into that system. If I'm building a business and I can come into the system and oh my God, I can get sales just by talking to these people. I mean, that's what, Silicon Valley, the reason these frankly stupid businesses pop out is they show up in a networking thing and somebody's like, oh, I'll give you $1 million, son. I know that's not exactly how it works, but the the level of effort to take us, to step up to the plate is so much lower than it is here. And
Yep.
we need to
But if they're in tech, this area tends to be in a biotech or a medical orientation. There's wellness and health and the lifestyle and all of those things give it a look and feel that attracts that kind of people.
Sure.
And then you've got talent coming in and you're building those kind of companies, and those are the people who are being interviewed the whole time. I agree. I think you give it a different vibe than Austin or financial or tech. I agree 100% on that.
I just I'm building a platform. I'm trying to build a platform. You're trying to build a platform. I guess my approach to that is, at the end of the day, I'm a platform and there's content on that platform. I'm not producing that content. Other people are producing that content. If at the end of the day, where the value is to those content producers, I'm cool with that. I will ride their coattails into the sun. The platform doesn't need to be the focus. And really, where I think the power can be is when I enable those people and say, fly to the moon. That's where I can actually, that's actually where my power comes from, rather than saying, I'm taking this, you guys need to follow me. And that's, I'm not sure where you would think about that from the position of a platform provider.
Yeah.
I gotta go. I just got notified that breakfast is ready. My son cooked quiche.
I've got to go. So Matt, thanks, Tristan. To answer that question really quickly is that you taking an approach, for example, where you don't charge, you only get a percentage of everybody's success. Don't worry if you can survive that or not.
Sure.
Right. That is an alternative approach to me as a startup paying a platform up front to promote my stuff.
Fair.
So now your business is designed to raise the level of everybody, because you're taking a percentage of everybody's success. People who share your mindset will do business with you.
That's right.
Right. There's a group, to me, that's appealing. There's a group who want to be the broadcast king and will get in bed with those that want that kind of prestige. But in Maslow's hierarchy of need, the need to belong is a different mindset to the need to. So I see that, but that's a business philosophy, values, all of those things.
Fair.
And I think there's prestige, but in the end, this idea of, can you help companies transform through your guidance to get to that next level, is something that I think you can offer value on, because you're talking to me, you're talking to 10,000 people. That's valuable, and what you learned here and you apply here is something I might pay for.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm gonna go.
No, that's good. I like the summary. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks so much for listening.
Cool.
And I hope
that. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate the conversation.
And we were talking just a little earlier. This is just a one-on-one. I think that the value of having, in today's world, the entrepreneurs talking like this about what the world is doing now. It's changing. We don't think masks, but somebody explained it to me is, you don't need to wear the mask, but your grandmother might appreciate that. Right. So you might have to, just because you're protecting somebody's grandmother. It was a good way of going, that's important. So I'm going to jump off. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I love your conversation. Yeah.
Thanks, Anna.
Great. Thanks. So we'll look for just no presentation, just a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Nice job, Kristen.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.